Hello, good morning, everybody. This is Tim Fairhurst at ETOA. We'll just wait for a minute or so whilst our colleagues join us. But it's going to be a relatively small group of us, so I hope many of you can feel you can ask some questions. You should be able to see in the dashboard to the right on the control panel, you've got opportunity to ask questions there. Today, I'm here with my colleague Aaron, who is behind the scenes. He's also going to be reviewing the questions that we receive from you. And just to remind you, the whole point of today's session is really to answer questions for sure. Since this is a new format we're trying, the online city fair, we are very keen that you test the platform to ensure that the equipment that you intend to use is going to work fine on the day, and we can help you out with any problems along the way. So I'll just be silent for a little bit whilst we wait for some more people to join us. Okay, well, we've got perhaps 2/3 of the people who registered, so I will start in order that we don't waste your time. Thank you very much for finding the time to join us. I was just looking at the list of people who have registered for this webinar, and it's great to see that we've got a full geographic spread. We have Moscow in the east, we have people in Portugal to the west, so welcome to a very European group, and I can see some familiar names as well from ETOA's membership, and also welcome to our colleagues from European Cities Marketing as well. So just to remind ourselves, next week you will receive the appointments that respond to the preferences you have already given. So what could be useful to do this week is to test the platform, and later on I will give you the email address if you've missed that in order to run the test. I'm also going to give you another email address now, which you might wish to note, which is support@celestina.org. I'll spell Celestina, C-E-L-E-S-T-I-N-A. So the address is support@celestina.org, and that will solve any technical problems you have. You are also familiar with ETOA in general, so you can get hold of us if that doesn't work for whatever reason. So mainly the group that I'm speaking to now are DMOs from across Europe, and one of the things I'd like to reflect on briefly is that my role at ETOA is on the policy side, which means at a European level, national, and increasingly at a regional and DMO level. We are absolutely convinced that DMOs will be the driving force of the recovery post-COVID. We are also very clear that that's where a lot of the creative energy is in terms of reorienting suppliers and helping bring the community with you as you reinvent what tourism is in your cities and regions. So we have had some extremely creative and interesting dialogue with some of you indeed, and also your counterparts across Europe to understand how you are trying to support the return of tourism, what information you need in order to get your strategy together, and how the public-private partnership can work better. And that's really where ETOA seeks to position itself as a bridge between the destinations and the worldwide buyers who you will be speaking to on July the 20th. So with that in mind, I thought it would be helpful to reflect a little bit on the questions that we have heard in general from operators in markets around the world as to what is going on inside Europe. And to frame the discussion, it is really mainly about the very end of this year, next year and beyond. As you will all know, that the bulk of the tourism that Europe will see this year is going to be intra-European. That's important. And one of the first reflections I'd like to share is the new product that is being developed as a consequence to the pivot to domestic demand. So how can I sell to my neighbors? That authentic, interesting, engaging product is exactly what the long haul buyers want to be able to offer their clients. So what people are looking for is the type of activities that the locals would wish to enjoy themselves. So even though none of us would have wished it like this, the current crisis will perhaps be a catalyst for some very creative product development and critically diversification away from perhaps some of the most famous sites and attractions. So the buyers are telling us a variety of things. Mainly what they want is information about what is open, how it works. For those of them who work with the groups business, they need to know the exact logistics. You know, how will I be able to get my group of 25 into this place? It's very important that anything you can do from the point of view of encouraging the attractions and other suppliers within your area to provide accurate information that's travel trade friendly. So it's not difficult to work out whether or not you can book ahead, how to manage groups. Do I need to split my people up into groups of 8 or 10 or 12? Is it online booking only? Where's the website? What's the booking horizon? Even though you can't know all the answers, you are certainly instrumental in encouraging good practice among all your supply chain. You're also extremely influential in encouraging good practice in reassuring the travel trade and the consumers that destinations are safe. Some of you have adopted international guidelines, some of you have developed your own. What I would encourage you to do is have that resource available on the day, not to dwell on, because 10 minutes is going to pass very quickly, but make sure that your counterparts are aware of any central information resource there may be in your destination where clients can have a look and see, aha, this particular city is operating to this sort of standard. This is where the information is about what the public health arrangements are. In this city, everyone wears a mask on public transport, and so on and so forth. This is necessary because operators need to set expectations within their own sales team and their customer service team in order that they can reassure their clients who are thinking about booking. Those of you who are active on the US market and are inside the Schengen zone will be doubtless frustrated and anxious that the US is not yet one of the countries that the Schengen zone will allow in. That is based purely on epidemiological grounds, and anyone following the news will realize that in the US it is difficult still in terms of coping with COVID. As soon as it is possible, I'm quite confident the EU will look favorably on the US being permitted to come inside the Schengen zone. But it's going to take 45 to 60 days from knowing what the date is to business starting up again. The operators do need that sort of lead time. So we think there's a window of perhaps 6 to 8 weeks in order for this information to become clear. Otherwise, the prospects of business for the US in calendar 2020 are limited. But I would like to reassure you, there is very significant demand. People are seeking to sell in October onwards. There's certainly promotions going on for Christmas markets and so on. It is a time to get creative. And I think one of the discussions we had earlier, just before Easter, in fact, with the UNWTO about how the crisis may affect tourism's development, the challenge to all of us, the industry and destinations, is make the most of what we have at whatever time of year the demand returns, because the demand is there. So again, thinking about July the 20th, can you bring some fresh ideas about what is available throughout the year at your destination? For those of you who have not attended this before, one of the things you may need to adapt is the sorts of materials you're providing. On the whole, the operators will be aware in general terms of what the main attractions are of your destination. You do not need to spend any of your precious 10 minutes summarizing that. It's really about the how the tourism works, as well as how the range is developing. And, you know, you asking questions of them as to what their client preferences are, what sort of preferences are they hearing on the telephone, on the email inquiries? Are people looking for less crowded locations? Are people looking for more rural locations? Is it small groups? Is it still large groups? Are they going to come? How will those get managed? People are always interested in price. Now, as DMOs, that's not something you've got direct knowledge of, but clearly hotel buying is one of the things that is necessary in order to place business. And again, one of the bits of feedback we have had in the last few weeks is that while operators are making inquiries to see, can I place some business in this hotel in early November, it at the moment is still very hard for them to get a response from the supply chain. So anything you can do on July the 20th to share business intelligence as to when hotels will open and how you see the accommodation sector opening up in your destination, that information will be very valuable for those attending on the 20th. So what I'd like to do now is encourage you to reflect. I've been talking at you for 10 minutes or so. If anything I have said has prompted a thought from you that you'd like to share, if you've got any specific questions, please can you type them in, and myself and Aaron will review them. While you're thinking about that, what I'm going to try and do is share a little bit of information which will help you understand how to test the platform, because it's really important to understand that if there are technical issues on the day, our ability to intervene in those is going to be very limited because of how fast the day goes. So it's essential that you test that the machine you're using, as well as the connection you have, will work fine with the platform. We have been testing a lot ourselves. We're confident it works, but it's really important that it works for each individual who's going to join us. So I'm now just going to show some instructions, and you may want to make a note or take a picture of the screen once I show it.
The instructions are also available in the handout section, so people should see that. So the file that Tim's sharing now is available to you all in the handouts. Again, so you can download that PDF. I think we have sent you the instructions already in some various pre-event emails, but it's useful to do that if you've been undertaking many video call meetings, as I think we all have during this. There shouldn't be a problem, but we're just being super secure, because as Tim says, the meetings are only 10 minutes long, so we don't want to interrupt any of that time dedicated. So just testing that in advance will cover us in advance. The issue that some people have been having is purely internal firewalls within their organization. So it may be that, of course, your system is fine with Teams or Zoom, or indeed GoToWebinars we're using now. It may just be that you need to flag the use of this platform specifically with your provider if you're working back in the office or on a network. Which, as you can tell, at ETOA we still are working from home. So Tim's shared that there. It's available on the City Fair website, and I think you should have access to the handout as well. You can just download that and have much quicker access to the links. As Tim said, you can use the question function or indeed the chat function on here if you have any points on the technical side, of course, or in relation to what Tim was talking about. But please shoot. We're here to respond to you now.
Thank you very much, Aaron. So far, no questions at all. So you've either all been put to sleep by my speech, or everything's very clear and you're looking forward. So pending any questions, I'll just share a few more reflections of what we have heard from the buyers over the last few weeks, which may help you prepare. So just to summarize, they are looking for accommodation and are struggling sometimes to find people who are going to answer the phone in some cases. So really anything you can do to help people understand that your destination is open for business, and anything you can do to help people understand where to find information about how to behave in the destination. Is it masks mandatory on public transport? What is the custom that you have created in your destination in order to manage community health? How will hotels operate? Is there a uniform standard that they're sticking to? Is there some sort of external recognition that you are encouraging? I've got a remark from Caroline Ellis. Thank you very much, Caroline, who is happy with the information so far. So again, this is your chance. I spend my time talking to buyers who might be based in China, United States, anywhere in Europe, and we also have working groups across Europe which help us stay very plugged into what the concerns are on the ground. Over the last few months, it's been extremely clear that there has been some tension between members of the supply chain, operators who've been obligated to refund consumers. The operators themselves have been trying to recover funds from suppliers. That's not always been easy because everyone is suffering a cash flow freeze at the moment. So I think your relationship with buyers will definitely warm up if you can recognize that things have been difficult and things continue to be difficult, and it is often in relation to attractions who typically accept money ahead of time for bookings. If those bookings subsequently cancel, there have been a lot of examples of those attractions not yet being in a position to return the funds to the operators. From our perception, there is a very significant risk that a lot of those attractions will be dropped from programs simply because of the logistic difficulty and the uncertainty surrounding all of that. But the financial pain caused by the money staying with the attraction rather than being returned to operators who are exposed to consumer refunds, that has caused a lot of difficulty and continues to do so. It is also an opportunity because one of the big areas for diversification we see is that on the assumption that for many attractions, their internal capacity will be limited, or even their external capacity. So if you're an archaeological site, it may be the case that you have fewer people on the site at one time in order to maintain social distancing. That being the case, it's very clear that supply is reduced at some of those sites. Therefore, as demand comes back, there really will be an opportunity to spread the volume to other sites. So the big opportunity around attractions is you working with the local ecosystem so that they understand how the travel trade does its booking, how does it do its product research, how can you get the business. And I think there's going to be a very strong opportunity for what historically might have been called secondary destinations. I think we can get rid of that language. It's now about destinations that are just simply offering the kind of experience people want, and that experience may well change. So there is an opportunity to ask your operator counterparts on July the 20th exactly how they think that change may take place. But there is also an opportunity for you to influence the change. So from a DMO perspective, and I apologize to those of you for whom this is very familiar territory, but for people who've not done this before, just had lots of quick speed dates with the travel industry, this is your chance to influence people's thinking for product 18 months, 2 years from now. If there are things happening in your area, if there's investment going in, if there is a new direction to the tourism strategy where you see an opportunity for the travel trade to align with that and bring the community and the tourists together in something that everyone thinks is worth doing and is valuable, you are going to see some business. On webinars over the last few weeks, we have heard time and again that people think one of the characteristics of the new tourism that may return during the recovery is something that we've called community-friendly tourism. So that's partly to do with the community valuing what tourism is. So you play an enormous role in communicating that within your own community. But it's also an opportunity for the visitors to contribute and to interact with the community in ways that perhaps was not previously possible. And given that for the last few months, we have all been locked down, or many of us have been, these opportunities to have some sort of human interaction, provide a more meaningful interaction between visitors and host communities. This is where we see a lot of scope for business development. If you and your network of suppliers are able to support that kind of new product, you will certainly get interest from operators, and we strongly encourage you to brainstorm on that internally before July the 20th. Another question, again from Caroline, thank you, asking whether there will be a pause between each meeting before you move from one to the next. The answer is, as you approach the end of 10 minutes, you get a countdown. So there's a warning as it comes along, but Aaron will correct me if I'm wrong. When I did the test, it went immediately from one to the other. So you do need to have someone on hand to bring you a glass of water or a cup of coffee. As you look at your schedule, you'll find that there are natural breaks in it, but it is pretty relentless. There is not the normal time you had to just quickly snatch a call as you move from one bit of the conference hall to another. That said, all our experience as we've been testing over the last few weeks is that, you know, you're sitting there, you've got your papers organized, it is effective, and once you pace yourself, it works well. Aaron, have you got anything to add about
the pace of the day will be a bit different from usual, because obviously you don't have the walk between desks. I mean, at City Fair you would be static in a way, the pause between times to refocus. So this will be really dependent on your planning next week once you've had your provisional appointments. As Tim said, we've tried to make it as obvious as possible. So you have a minute towards the end of your meeting when the clock is flashing red, and then the last few seconds it's bleeping. So we've tried to make it very clear that your time is coming to an end in the meeting. There will be obviously gaps in terms of breaks, and the ratio is very good for this year's City Fair, so you should have quite busy schedules, but they will flow from one to another. So there'll be a few seconds while they dial in, but as Tim said, it's pretty seamless in terms of the transition between the different meetings. Oh, so we're now having a flood of...
So Aaron, let me just let you read those questions, because I think you'll be able to answer most of them. And I'll just share one reflection meanwhile.
So how many buyers, operators are expected to attend at the virtual City Fair? We are looking at about 150. It's a bit different this year because we are online, we're actually able to accommodate buyers coming in from Asia and the US as well. So we won't have a static number of operators in at one time. The day's split into two bits. But yes, it's around 150 operators will be attending at one point or another during the day. James asks about swapping business cards and contact details. So there will be an online event directory that's available. So you'll have people's contact details in there. As you go through the online workshop, on the left-hand side, you'll have your schedule, which will be automatically running you through the appointments. So you can use that to look ahead as to who's coming next as a reminder. Once you've had those meetings, an email link will appear within the agenda. So if you have immediate stuff ready, and I suggest you do in terms of a template and then specific information in response to what you had, that's quite a useful way of shooting off the feedback or the information requested immediately after. So we don't display the email link before the meetings, but once they've happened, they're all there ready for you just to click. It opens in your Outlook or whatever you use, and you can quickly send. So I mean, during your week next week, as I've said, prepare for your meetings, but then I'd also say kind of anticipate just having a template of responses, obviously with your usual contact details in your email as well. Anna asks about a chat messenger to send links during the meeting. Yes, there is a chat function, but it only lasts for the duration of your 10-minute meeting. So you have to make sure that whoever you're sending this information to in the chat, that needs to be copied as soon as you've sent it. As I said, you can follow up with the email, but the chat is only in existence for the duration of the meeting. That's the bilateral conversation with your match. There is a support chat that's available throughout, which will connect you with a member of the ETO team for any tech or other support that's required. When you don't have any meetings during this event, and during breaks and lunches and just before we kick off, we'll be broadcasting a single channel of interesting conversations, interviews, some sponsor adverts for the operators throughout the day. So you'll be able to see a live feed from the ETOA offices when you're not in a match.
And another question
yes,
from Portugal there, Aaron.
Yes. Do we have access to email lists after the event, or do we have to save the contacts to go along? So as I said, you'll have that in the directory, but as I said, I think you can always log in back to the appointment matching system. So you'll have all accessed Celestina already to submit your requests. It's a little known functionality and little used functionality of the platform that up until next year's event, you can actually log in and access your appointment schedule with all the links and emails of the people you met. So that's quite a good function. If you want to do it in one place, you can just work down the list and actually email from the system itself.
Okay, that's all clear. So Keith will want some more questions going on.
Yeah.
So did I miss anything important in the last 6 minutes? Asked Lisa. Absolutely, Lisa. We gave you a winning lottery number. I'm sorry you missed it. In fact, there will be a recording.
Being sent in a few hours. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry to talk over you, Aaron. There will be a recording. And Audrey has a question that's technical. So can I throw that one to you, please, Aaron?
Sure. Yes, there is a share screen function. I suggest you do test that so you can activate that part, because I think for the share screen, depending on which browser you use, there's an extra permission that you have to add for that. But I remind you that, I mean, yes, usually these meetings do involve the presentation of various brochures and PDFs, etc. The time is shorter. It's only 10 minutes, so I would maybe adapt. I don't know if Tim has anything to say about this in terms of how you approach the meetings themselves. Not to rely too much on the presentation, because that can always be sent later, which kind of brings me on to the next question that we've received about sharing videos and PDFs. If you're going to do that, so I'd suggest doing that in with online links, because you can send those directly. There's no file sharing service. We've deliberately excluded the transfer of files on this platform, really to secure the bandwidth of everyone using it. So we will have a team in the background making sure that all the calls, which I think are the most important thing, are being connected properly and with the right allocation of bandwidth. So we've actually excluded any file sharing. But as I said, you can do that simply by sharing the links, or indeed during the follow-up after the event.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, in terms of preparation, one of the things that your counterparts have discovered when they've been helping us do the testing is it's really important to get your closing message prepared, because whereas in the in-person format, it's possible you stand up, you shake hands, the next meeting person is hovering just off to the left somewhere, but you can say, great, let's phone again next week. You have to organize what the follow-up actions are and get those delivered and agreed before the 10 minutes is up. There is no possibility of delaying, and it will frustrate you if you think, goodness, I meant to book a phone call with that person, I meant to find out who in their organization I should be connecting with, I didn't do it. Yes, of course you can follow up by the emails. Aaron's explained how you can do that, but I think you need to plan the close early is something that we've discovered. Quick remark that I hadn't mentioned earlier about the sorts of things we're hearing from operators. I talked about health protocols. I talked about help with hotel accommodation generally. I talked about access and diversification for attractions and some of the money issues around that. I think the last thing that's operational is really to do with coach access and sort of for people who are still going to be traveling with groups, and we expect that to happen. Because in some respects, there is a sense of security as people travel in their own social bubble to some extent. How both coaching, so access to hotels within any historically restricted zones can take place, that may need to be reviewed in the context of you wanting to avoid the use of public transport or minimize the load on public transport. So if you are in contact with the transport department for your city, and when times were very busy, they had introduced some sort of access arrangements for coaching, it may be sensible to suspend some of those arrangements in order to allow groups to be delivered right to the front door of hotels, in order they don't have to use public transport. That's obviously something that will depend on local circumstances, but transport access, how that works, is something that the operators will be curious about on the 20th. I think that's all in terms of practical information. We can just see another, I think we've got another question from Fabien. Is there an opportunity to show a PowerPoint? Again, as Aaron said, in order to preserve bandwidth, additional media is not something you can share. You will be able to share links with your counterparts in order that they can run it. Thank you, Audrey, for your kind remarks. I think that's it from us. I'll wait another 30 seconds if there's some more questions. There's one from Michael.
Yeah, just to say, we can share screens, that is possible. So, I mean, that covers the PowerPoint presentation. Again, that's a timing issue, I'd say. So, I mean, you've said that it is short, so that is fine. You can share your screen. So if you have a PowerPoint, you can do it like that. But I'd suggest keeping the links in PDF form to share thereafter. So go on to the test platform as shared, and you'll see that there's an option there to permit your browser to allow the screen sharing, because that's an additional thing that we need to give permission to do so, but it's very simple.
I'm just going to show the instructions again, if that's helpful. So apologies, Fabian, I gave you slightly misleading information. So because people can see your screen, if you were running a PowerPoint, you'd be able to do that. So hopefully you can see the virtual.etoa.org URL in the middle of those instructions, as well as the test above. So that information has been provided to you and will be circulated again after this, in order that you can test. So if there's only one thing you do, testing the platform is essential. And if it's not you who is participating in the event, please can you ensure that whoever from your organization is participating conducts the test and confirms with you that all is well. And if you do need support, meanwhile, you know how to find ETOA generally, but support@celestina.org is the contact address in the first instance. We have no more questions. Aaron, if nothing further from you, I think we will bid our colleagues goodbye until July the 20th. Thank you very much for your time. And in general, thank you very much for your very hard work during a very challenging time. ETOA is here for destinations. We are looking for ways of collaborating as creatively and constructively as possible in order to develop good public-private partnerships as we rebuild. So good luck as your plans take shape, and I hope you have a very productive day on July the 20th. Nice to spend time with you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.